Hey everybody, this is Anthony Striglia. Today we're going to talk about how to make a field required in your table or on your screen, and there's a few different ways that you can do this. The first way and the easiest way, if you have a field and it doesn't matter if it's a QuickBooks field, a method field, or a custom field, you can turn on data validation on the field and you can make that field required basically on a moving forward basis. What does that mean? That means when you open up a record, whether it's a historic record or a new record, so a new sales order in this case, it's going to make you fill out the PO number if we make this field required moving forward. So if you open an old sales order and have to make a change and try to save it, it's going to make the PO number a requirement. So then you'll have to fill that in with some data. The second way to do it is to use maybe a custom on-screen validation where you can check the field and show a pop-up message if the field is empty. So in that case, maybe you have some information that you want to share with your users about, well, what do we put in this field? So for PO number, maybe we want to say, step one, ask the customer for a PO number. If they don't have that, step two, ask the customer for a job name. If they still don't have that, what's step three? Do you put in the customer name? Do you put in the date and what you deem the project name? Do you put in a description of the project, right? So maybe you have a workflow that you would like to portray and share to your users about how you want that to be handled. The third way is to make the field required at the table level. And you can only do this for custom fields. You can only change the field requirement for custom fields. Maybe method fields, but definitely not QuickBooks fields. You can't edit QuickBooks fields, even just to make them required. You can do it on screen, but you can't do it at the table level. The advantage and disadvantage with the table level, the advantage is no matter what screen you're using to modify the record, it will always be a requirement. It won't let you save without adding that field. So if you had a different sales order screen, or in certain situations, maybe you have a different edit screen or a mobile edit screen, or a different app that uses those records and modifies those records, or maybe creates new records, or maybe an automation that creates new records, or coming from estimates to sales orders, it's going to force you to have that field filled in. I'll show you that with the status field that we've been working on, and also with the PO number field. And I'll show you that you can't change the QuickBooks field, but you can change the status field at the table level. Also, when you're changing stuff at the table level, you have to make sure that all of the records currently in the table have some data in it. So hypothetically speaking, let's say we added a field called project name or something along those lines. But not all sales orders had a project name. But you wanted that to be a requirement moving forward. What you would have to do is you would have to update all the records where the sales orders are blank. Update all the records where the project name is blank to something like, prior to requirement, or maybe you just make it the sales order ref number, and then looking back that if it's the sales order ref number, that field was empty prior to making it a requirement moving forward. Yusuf has a great video on how to update multiple records or all records in QuickBooks. I'll link that in the video description. I won't get into that, but I will show you how to do this in 3 different ways. Okay? So let's jump right in. This is the easiest way. We're just going to customize this screen. And again, this works great if you only have one edit screen for your records. PO number, okay? Method builds in this really nice data validation rule set that you can come in here and you can find stuff. No malicious values, that's pretty much a default for all fields. Field is required. That's the easiest way. It's the cleanest way. Again, it works great if you have only one edit screen for the records. It's going to put the little red asterisk next to the caption. It's not going to let you save until you put in a PO number. And it's going to take your cursor right into that field. Okay. Now, again, as I said, if I wanted to change the due date of this sales order, I would now have to put in a PO number. So I could say maybe old sales order, but it is going to be a requirement when you turn that field validation of required on, that now you can't edit sales orders without going in and adding a PO number. So maybe the opportunity here, there's no opportunities, but maybe tags. I can't save this. I can't print because print calls the save routine. I can't create an invoice. A lot of these actions down here call the save routine before the action happens. So like send and print and create invoice. So I have to put a PO number in here. Okay, that's the easiest way to do that, make that field required. Now I said there was a way to do it where you put a little pop-up message and it shows you maybe what the expectation is for that field. So let's do that. So we can leave this required, or we can turn it off. I'll turn it off to show you that it works without having the field validation on. And all we're going to do is check this field on save. By the way, save is pretty much the routine where you do any kind of automation, because it always happens anytime you modify a record on save is when you want to do some kind of automations or checks or calculations or anything like that. So for this, we're just going to pop in a conditional statement. This is going to be the first thing that happens on save. So I'm going to drag that to the top. And what you can do here, you can either have multiple conditional statements, or you can change this to any, and you can put all the fields that you want in this one if statement and then put all your instructions in there. So let's do PO number. And then we're just going to say is empty. So we're saying if PO number is empty, and then let's show message. And I'm just going to do this really quick with some instructions maybe that you wanted to show your CSRs. So this would be like an instruction set. Okay, so we're going to show this message, give them a little snippet of what the expectation for this field is. Obviously, we can put, and then after that, so we're in this if statement, so if that's empty, we just want to stop processing more actions. So that's all we have to do for that. That gives you a chance to put a little message on the screen. Now remember, we turned the validation off for that field, but we're still blocking things from happening. With this method, there are some actions that maybe don't call save right away. So there's still some things that might happen, but typically you can't do almost anything without the save function being called. Okay, please fill in PO number. Here's our little message that we wrote to them. Okay, this is an old PO, so our old sales order. So I'm just going to put old sales order because, if we're coming back and changing stuff from the past, maybe we don't want to track down the customer to get a PO number for a job that's already in our production after we've changed the requirement to to capture a PO number. So those are the two ways to do it on screen. Now again, if on screen or if in Method you have multiple screens that maybe can modify or change the same transaction, you shouldn't do it on screen, but you can do it at the table level if it's a custom field. So there's about 3 ways to do this. And again, you can only do this, I think, with custom fields, but let's go take a look at sales order. So here's sales order, and I want to show you, I'll show you this PO. Okay, so see, this is a QuickBooks field. I can't edit it. I can't make this required. If we wanted to make this field required, we might have to make a new PO field, remove that one from the screen, and just do a new one. What I do want to show you is the status field and how I can make that field required. And what I also want to show you is if I add a new field and try to make it required, I can't because it will be empty. So I can make this required. That's fine. And now I believe if I come to an estimate and I create a sales order, I don't think we put the, yep, see, so what happened? So the insert failed because the sales order record ID status is empty and it's failing to insert the record because we don't have a status. So now that we've made status required, and this is what I'm talking about if multiple screens have the ability to actually create a record or modify a record. In this case, the estimate screen is trying to create a sales order. So we've found that validation issue not in the sales order edit screen, but in a different screen where it's trying to create a sales order. So by doing it at the table level, you will never miss it because you'll get errors. So what do we have to do? In the estimate screen, we have to come to the create sales order workflow, and we have to find the insert record into table, and we have to add a status. And what status are we going to add to a new sales order? Let's see. We can just do display, and we can do pending approval maybe. It doesn't matter. Whatever your default status is, but if it's a requirement, then you have to come in here and do it. So insert record into table, insert new sales order, and since we need a status, let's do status display. Status. Looks like I'm loading a bit slow right this second. Come on. Display, and we said draft or pending approval. Status display. Oops. And then we'll do pending approval. As soon as it lets me. The screen designer has been running a bit slow lately. Yep, I'm getting that a lot no matter what my internet speed is. But it'll come back. If you just hit wait, if you do get that, that's a good example of that error. If you just hit wait, it'll come back. So let's do pending approval. Hopefully there's no spelling errors. We've done that before. And then now that we made that field required at the table level, it saved us in the estimate screen. I'm going to make a new field in sales orders and show you that you cannot make a field required if there's already records because the field will be blank. So if we were to make a new field called, I don't know, job name, we cannot make it required until we actually update all the records. So now if I create a sales order, by the way, if you wanted to make the estimate and sales order statuses match, you could use the on-screen status of the estimate to create the sales order. I clicked the wrong thing. Hang on a second. I'm sorry. I think I'm in a different estimate now, but that's okay. So create sales order. Okay, so obviously I spelled that wrong in either here or here. Or maybe I have the wrong display. Let's see. Or maybe we don't have the display. We can get the record ID if we want and use that. This is the sales order lines. That loops through the estimate lines, copies each line over. Here's the sales order. So let's see, do I have the do we have the status text in there, or do we just have the only the record ID? Oh, we gotta let all these load. I'm not sure why it's not taking the status, but let's just grab the record ID. So let me export the sales order status table, and then we'll just grab the record ID of pending approval, which it's gonna be 2. So let's just do okay, let's try that. And now we will create a sales order. And there we go. And we have status pending approval by default. Okay. And we need a PO number. Look how good our validation works. All right. Now let's go take a look at if we create a new field, what happens if we try to make it required. Look, we can't, because this field is going to have empty records, so we can't make empty. It's going to have records where this field is empty, so we cannot make this required. So I believe Yusuf has a good video on how to update lots of records at once. I'm just going to do it quick, and I'll link that video to in the description to how to update all the records or multiple records in a table based on criteria. But my point is this: if you update all the records to have data in them, then you'll be able to go back to the table and make it required at the table level. And then again, at the estimate screen, you're going to get an error. And then you'll have to fix it there, and you'll have to put in a job name, and that's something if you want to capture at the estimate level. So there's different levels of validation that you can. There's different levels of quote unquote field requirement that you can do, where something's required from the moment it's created, or something's required when you save after you create it. So now if I come in my job name here, I can make this required, because now all the sales orders have a job name. They're not on the screen anywhere, but in the database on the backside, they have a job name and it's required. Interestingly enough, I can't make any changes to this sales order without, oh, yes I can, because this already has a job name. But I can't make a new sales order from the estimate screen because it's not going to have a job name. So here's that field right there. So that's it. That's how to make a field required 3 ways. Multiple ways to do it in Method, depending on what your requirement is. So thank you guys for watching, and more to come.